Good evening. I'm Lee Johnson. National Hug Day is January 21st, 2010. While we applaud the efforts of the holiday organizers to encourage this positive action between two people, we feel the need to warn you about the perils of certain hugs. Awkward hugs. Stay with us as we explore different types of awkward hugs. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but merely an introduction to some of the most common and most problematic. Generally, when two people hug, there is advance warning and a mutual awareness of which side of the first person the second person will land. However, for reasons unknown, this does not always happen. Once in a while, both people in the hug go to the same direction. They land cheek to cheek, and in most cases remain there for fear of making it even more awkward. Occasionally, you will find yourself in a hug when carrying something fragile or spillable. In these cases, frequently, the other hugger appears oblivious to the dangers inherent in the potential dropping of a bag of groceries or a cup of coffee. The tall hug occurs when one hugger is particularly taller than the other. Disparities in height can cause the shorter of the huggers to find themselves trapped in the envelope of the other person's upper body, feeling suffocated or otherwise weighed down. Sometimes, when hugging someone in what may be an otherwise comfortable way, at the last minute one may trip or find oneself on a downward slope, thereby falling into the other person's embrace more quickly than anticipated. Occasionally, an over-enthusiastic hug is combined with one hugger being significantly stronger than the other. In the Heimlich, the stronger hugger squeezes the second in one quick burst, often causing a vocal emission. In the slow death, the second hugger is squeezed and held too tightly for the duration of the hug. On the other end of the spectrum, from the eager, quick-to-embrace hugs, are the hesitant hugs. Hugs are a natural thing our bodies do instinctively. By hesitating, we begin to think. And since no two people think about hugs the same, chaos can and will ensue. Where your arms are positioned on the other person in a hug is based largely on gender, relational status, and height. But not always. There are 4 options for each person in regards to where to put the arms, and these must match with the other person's choice, multiplying the odds for awkwardness by dozens. These 4 options can be broken down into 2 sets. The first is whether your arms go around the other's neck or waist. The second is, if you're practicing the more platonic or egalitarian hug, you may alternate your arms, one going up and one down. The question is, which arm goes up and which down, and does it match the other hugger? Another cause for a hesitant hug is the question of whether a greeting ought to be a hug or a more subdued handshake. 2 people approach and hesitate. The first, eager to make a move, holds out their hand. The second, also eager, misinterprets the move of the other into that of an offered hug. Group hugs are always already awkward and should be avoided at all costs. Over-enthusiastic hugs that are unwanted are not just awkward, they can easily cross the line into harassment. While a friendly back rub may feel nice, an unwelcome one in the context of a hug can send pins and needles down one's spine. A more common example of this type of hug is the face dodge. In this slick and sleazy hug, the offender lacks to fully complete the embrace from the shoulders up, thereby lingering their face frighteningly close to the other person's. Worse still, they may tilt their head toward the second person. Either way, that person feels the impending doom of the first face and may feel like they have to be ready to fend off the initiation of an unwanted kiss. Not all hugs are awkward exclusively for the huggers. In the get a room, 2 people are together, perhaps chatting, and a third approaches. One of the original 2 and the third engage in a long, cozy, and mutually inviting hug. This is awkward for the spectator of the hug, who is left to stand uncomfortably on their own. suddenly excluded. They are left with 3 uninviting options: interrupt the hug, leave and return at a future unknown time, or stand there and wait it out. The opposite of the enthusiastic hugs, be they mutually enthusiastic or one-sided, is the Minnesota or the Connecticut. This hug is established when the huggers do not actually want to hug one another, but social custom requires that they do. They will embrace with as much distance between them as possible, with stiff arms and hip bent to keep the pelvises away from each other. These hugs are generally very quick, leaving both partners feeling vaguely unsatisfied and maybe even a little unpleasant. A similar hug is the fugitive, or the one-armed hug. In this hug, the line between a hug and merely putting one's arm around someone else is blurred. This hug often shares the titular feature of the cheeky, as the two faces meet side by side. Hugging over a table or other surface can result in an unfortunately forced Minnesota or Connecticut. Another hug made awkward by furniture occurs when one person is sitting down. A decision to rise in advance and hug properly may be slightly awkward, but is a walk in the park compared to the alternatives. In one case, the seated person may remain seated, forcing the other to lean over, sometimes causing them physical pain by the inertia of the approaching embrace. In the other case, the seated person may rise into the hug but get stuck halfway up, making it more comfortable for the fully standing hugger, but almost precarious for the now bent one. People, naturally, have their own ideas about what constitutes an appropriate length for a hug. The person who has the shorter hug sensibility is generally the one to loosen their grip, to initiate the end of a hug. Oddly, this does not always work. Sometimes, when one person loosens their grip, the other remains holding tight, either not noticing or ignoring the cue. If you find yourself stuck in one of these hugs, there is something you can do. Go limp in their arms. Depending on how they are holding you, one of 2 things will happen. You may fall to the ground, or you may hang by your underarms, swinging from the other person's grip. Neither may look appealing, but it is a viable alternative to the too long. We thank you for watching our study on awkward hugs. We hope this has been informative and will help you avoid such disastrous hugs when at all possible in the future. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much.